And hello, everybody. Welcome to Two Guys Talking Sports. I'm Pat McDonald with Radigan Media. He's Tim Burney with the Sports Reports. We're here for episode 14. Coming up a little bit later, we'll talk to Corning head coach Mike Johnston as he gets ready for a big showdown with Horseheads. But before that, Tim, let's go over last week's action on the New York State side of things.
Yeah, quite a shootout at Tioga's Hagerty Field last Friday night. 40-34 Delhi. A little surprising to me. Tioga couldn't stop them. You know, Delhi, nice mix of throwing the football and getting the ball to the edge. We're able to get the corner on Tioga. On the flip side, Delhi couldn't stop Tioga either. Just a matter of, who had the ball last, and Tioga kind of ran out of time at the end. I think Tioga makes some adjustments defensively. They got a good shot when I'm pretty sure they'll meet each other again in the section finals, so it'll be interesting. Although Tioga, this puts a new light on Tioga in the division. Bainbridge Guilford's much improved. Deposit Hancock pretty solid team too from what the looks of it. I just have a hard time believing that either one of those two teams are going to stop Tioga up front.
And you talked to Coach Ayala. How's his team handling? Obviously, after not losing in a few years, 43 straight wins, even longer at home. After losing 2 now this year, how are they handling it?
Different group of kids, though. I mean, This is, there's only 4 starters back from last year. Only 1 at the skill positions. And that, when I say skill positions, that includes the defensive side of the ball, too, linebackers and defensive backs. So, it's still a young team in that regard. So I think, as the season goes on and they're able to coach them up a little bit more and show them more film and show them their mistakes, I think they'll be fine.
Waverly sticking in the Valley area. Waverly keeps rolling, obviously 62-0 over Schuyler. We're able to keep everybody healthy, kind of spread the love around on offense, and just got a dominant win.
Schuyler strong. I mean, they graduated a lot of kids last year, and they're kind of rebuilding. That's kind of what was expected.
We'll talk about more with Coach Johnson here, but Cicero North Syracuse 58-36 over Corning. CNS with Anthony Johnson, a Syracuse commit, 300 yards, 7 touchdowns on the ground. They also have a big lineman who's a Syracuse commit that Coach Johnson is going to talk about. But obviously, never want to lose a game, but that might help Corning, as they move forward a little bit.
Yeah, and we'll talk about with Coach Johnson. Win or lose this year when they play Elmira in the postseason, they're going to go to states because Section 4 has the wild card this year. So. It'll be interesting. I mean, Cicero North Syracuse lost 27-0 to Christian Brothers Academy, defending state champ, and they're AA as well in the Syracuse area. So,
Horseheads a 42-6 win over Elmira. We'll talk about a bunch about Horseheads Corning with Coach Johnson, and then later on in our closing segment here. But a nice win for Horseheads, bouncing back. And then maybe the biggest one of the weekend, obviously, Maine Endwell 21-14. They were up 21-0, I believe.
About halfway through the fourth quarter.
Over Shenango Forks. Forks makes it a close game there, so another close win for Coach Gallagher and company.
Makes Waverly Shenango Forks could be epic.
Yeah.
In the Section 4
Yeah, they don't play this year in the regular season, so we got to wait until the Section 4 finals, but that's going to be a fun one.
And that's, Coach Johnson will touch on that. Playing a team twice in 1 year is a lot different than playing them once. And so, things that both coaches will have an opportunity to unveil things they maybe haven't shown in the first 12 weeks of the season in the postseason, in the finals.
And I'm sure this won't happen, but I'm going to put it out there right now. Waverly Shenango Forks should be played at Owego. They're going to play it in the Binghamton area, I'm sure, but Owego makes the most sense. I mean, it's a beautiful new field, a new complex there, and it would just make the most sense, obviously, kind of right dab smack in the middle. But
Section 4 won't do that.
So, that's most of the games from last week. Then on Saturday, we had a couple, right? So Owego rolled 61-6 over Oneonta. I was there for a little bit. We had that game on WEBO. Pat and Taylor's got that team, on all cylinders right now, and they're just chugging along, looking forward to that big showdown with Maine Endwell the last week of the regular season, and then probably, 2 weeks later.
I think Owego, I knew they were good. They really opened my eyes, beating up on Horseheads the way they did. So I'm pretty interested to see. I tell you what, Maine Endwell is so fast, and they've got so many weapons. They don't even throw the ball that much. I mean, their quarterback had some big completions against Waverly, but the majority of that damage was done on the ground. So it's going to be interesting. That I think Owego will have their hands full that day, but I think they could be a little more competitive than last year.
Yeah, looking forward to those matchups coming up here soon. Spencer Burnett and Candor, Svek, the 34-14 win over Harpersville Afton.
And then it puts them in, I think, very early, because I think they only have one league game or one divisional game, but that puts them in tie for first, I think, with Delhi, who they play this weekend. So,
and then the other game here in our area, Susquehanna Valley 35-14 over Newark Valley, obviously.
Newark Valley's, they lost a couple kids before the season. They had a couple more injuries here the first couple weeks. They lost, I think, their quarterback this past weekend. So, and now they get Tioga this coming weekend. So it's going to be a tough time up there in Newark Valley right now.
And we're going to talk about this week's games coming up in our third segment. But right now, we're going to throw it to our interview with Corning head coach Mike Johnston. And joining us now here on Two Guys Talking Sports is Corning head coach Mike Johnston. How are we doing tonight, Coach?
I'm good. Thanks for having me on tonight, guys.
Coach, before we get into this year, I just wanted to ask you, last year you had your father and your brother on your coaching staff, correct? That must have been pretty fun year for you.
Yeah, you know what? It's my dad's 78 years old right now, and my brother would do anything to help me, and I asked him to come on board and coach my JV program in football. And then my dad came home, or was home for a little bit, because they head south. God knows right now with the way the hurricane season is when that will go there. But they both came on board last year, and it was nice to spend some quality time and got to see them every single day. And, Dad's not getting any younger, although he thinks he is. He's going to CrossFit every morning, and he's still in great shape at 78. And he's started back up the Notre Dame modified program for football, trying to keep that rolling. He's a diehard Notre Dame high school guy. And, my brother still helps me with, he's my assistant coach in softball and won the state title last year. And he was a big part of that. He and his wife and his daughter, Maddie, was our pitcher and was player of the year in class AAA, because we have AAA in softball and still AA in football.
I was going to ask you about that later, but since you touched on it now, middle of the season, you kind of move a freshman in at pitcher, and that's a gutsy move, in a big school. But it paid off, and you guys win a state title. Especially being your niece, that had to be pretty special for you as well.
Yeah, well, she was a sophomore last year.
Sophomore, right?
Yeah, no, and we had used both pitchers, and the girl that was starting for us, Peyton Sullivan, is throwing at Division II at New Haven University, and she was our 3-stick and pitcher, and I think that the two of them worked really well together, and I just thought at that moment in time that Maddie was our hot hand, and that's what we went with. And she threw a no-hitter in this sectional championship game, and then beat a really good team from the city area. And then, she had a no-no going through 6 innings in the state championship game. So, it's nice to, you win with somebody on the mound, obviously, they give you a great chance, and the game has changed. When it went from 40 feet to 43 or so pitcher dominant, that they just blew it by people. And she's just a great kid. She's a blessing, and, lucky to have her.
I have a lot of friends who are coaches. I know how tough just coaching one sport is, and the season isn't just a season, right? It's all year, it seems like. So how are you handling the 3 different sports right now up there?
Well, I'm in a very fortunate situation that I'm able to hire really good assistant coaches. And, you don't do it without those people. And administration has been very supportive. And, they know that we're willing to work hard at it. And we have a great group of student athletes and parents that back us and support our program in all 3 of them. And, like I said, I have people that ask me, how do you coach 3? And, my family is great, and they help with things at home, and they help keep me organized. And, for me right now, I've got an opportunity. My daughter graduated, and she played some flag football, and she would have been the first one. She was always a softball player, and she decided when flag football came on 2 years ago that that's what she wanted to do. So it kind of broke my heart, but I was happy for her. And she didn't tell me till a couple of days before the season started her junior year. And she went on to have 20 interceptions in 2 years and was the defensive player of the year. So she had a great nose for the ball, and I loved watching her play. And now I've got a son that's a junior who's out with an injury for the football season this year, but will be back for basketball and lacrosse. And my youngest is an eighth grader that, excels in football, basketball, and in lacrosse as well. So I'm looking forward to, I could have retired 2 years ago. But I'm going to stay around 5 more so I can have an opportunity to have some experiences with my 2 sons.
Let's talk football. You're 3-1 on the year. Obviously, just dropped one to Cicero, North Syracuse. I mean, Anthony Johnson, 300-some yards, 7 touchdowns. Talk about the player he was for CNS.
Nah, he's just, you don't see a kid around here like that. And, there's some good players around here, and you've got the main state programs that are well known around New York State, and but this kid was a different level. And he had, like you said, 7 touchdowns against us, and we were 3-0 at the time, and not too bad. We weren't giving up very many points, and he had close to 300, if not more, yards rushing. And their right tackle is going to Syracuse as well, and Johnson is right now he's a preferred walk-on at Syracuse, and I'm sure that he'll find a way because of his work ethic to get himself on the field. And I know that Syracuse is trying to keep things local, get more New York State players and recruit them. I think it's great for the fan base, and when Syracuse athletics is doing well, that's good for New York State athletics as well.
Coach, how do you look at a game like that? I think it was 58-36, but how do you look at a loss like that? I mean, you're playing against a very quality team. Is that beneficial for you? I mean, I know you don't like to lose, but what are your thoughts on that?
Well, we look back at it, and we opened the game that we had a kid that we had to put in a particular spot on our kick return at like 3 p.m. that day before the game. And he'd never played there before. And just because of where we are with numbers and whatnot, and it's like a magnet. The ball just seems to find those people. and they recovered the opening kick, and they scored. So now, we like to be ahead. And I want the ball because I want to score first, and I want people playing catch up. And, that's always been my philosophy, and it's been successful for us. And the game was nip and tuck. It was back and forth the whole game. They scored, we scored. They scored, we scored. And, it was a close game the entire game. And then another squib kick, and they recovered it again, and the ball just took a funny bounce. And, sometimes that happens, and it created a 2-score game now for them. But we ended up scoring to cut it to 1. They had a 3rd and 27, and we had a blown coverage. They end up completing the pass for a first down, and then Johnson scores again. So there's 3 plays that if they, we don't allow those to happen, that it's 37-36, and God knows what could have happened.
Right. So obviously we were talking before we started this, that AA this year in Section 4 gets a wild card. So basically it's you and Elmira. So there's a good chance that one way you could see them again, or Christian Brothers that you played last year again in the postseason. So, your thoughts on just not looking too far ahead, but as far as having seen them already, that's got to be a benefit for you and your kids.
Well, the section has gone in a different direction in the last couple of years, and I'll be honest with you, I'm not much of a fan of it. So last year I played CNS and CBA, who have been the powerhouses in Section 3. And I can trick them once, So when I was in Elmira and now being in Corning for the last 5 or 6 years, that, what we do is very unique with the double wing. I mean, we get beat the other night and we still score 36 points. And like I said, if we can play them one time in a year, then there's a great possibility that our athletes that may not be the type of guys. I mean, we don't have anybody that's even a 3-star, going to Syracuse. They got 2 kids, and that's not to name the others. And Syracuse or CBA has 3 kids that are, or 4 kids that are, they're 3 and 4 stars that have already committed to the Division I level. And, that's who we're competing against. And like I said, our crossover games, our non-leaguers are against Section 3, Right. And so that's very likely, at least not, in the past few years, who you're going to end up playing. I don't want them playing twice. So like I said, I want it to be something that they haven't seen all year long that
Right.
we could turn around and play them later on in the year again. And I'm not a fan of that. And, it's tough because we're in these classifications where we're a AA, but everybody that's in AA that we would play against has got 500, 600, 700 more kids, if not more, than we do. And CBA's gets to pick from whatever district they want. They get the best of the best, and they put kids out and they produce. And, my argument to Section 4 is that, the Class B schools that are very capable of playing us. We played Maine Endwell last year, and it was a heck of a ball game. Came down to the last 50 seconds. We went with 2 for 2 and didn't get it. We were denied, and we lost 51-50. What a great game. And we have 400 more students in our student body than they do. So I don't think there's a need to go out of Section 4. I mean, Section 3 I thought they had 20 fans. So for me, I'm reading a social media post the other day and, talking about as fans, as parents that, we can do better. We need to go out and support our student athletes and our kids that, we've got so many other things that we're wrapped up in that our kids want to, and I know it means something to them when they see mom and dad and grandma and grandpa and family members, up there, and have their back and rooting for them.
Obviously, coming off a loss, kids are motivated already, but how much does it help to go on and play a kind of a close rival anyway, and miles-wise with Horseheads coming up and a good team with the Blue Raiders too, right?
Well, I think they're really good. I think, to be honest with you, I mean, we had a preseason intra-school practice with Waverly, and they, obviously they won a state championship last year, but I've been really good friends with Jason Miller and David Shaw since I was a little kid. And, so we got together and they beat up on us a little bit, and they're Class C right now. And we went away, and it was a good thing because it opened my eyes. And, I said to our coaches, these guys are pretty good. And then we ended up scrimmaging Owego, who I think is really tough. And we scrimmaged Shenango Forks. So we started the season out with 3 schools that are top notch in Section 4, and any one of them, in my opinion, could win a state title this year. And, I had an opportunity to go watch Maine Endwell play a week 0 game against Union Endicott because we had Union Endicott coming up week 2, and really impressed with them. And, you can't say more about their program and what they've done as far as winning 7 or 8 state championship right now, dating back to Dick Russ and now what Matt Gallagher and his staff and his people have done there. And, so I don't know, from that standpoint, we know who we are, and, we have our eye on the prize, and we know where we need to be down the road, and we got to keep striving to get better.
When you look at Horseheads, what do they bring to the table that you guys are going to have to focus on to stop?
Well, I think Horseheads is as tough a team as I've watched so far. I think that they're, what I've seen in their first 3 or 4 games is that they've changed some personnel defensively, either by choice because they found people that are playing better, or maybe because of an injury. But their defense really swarms to the ball. They made plays last week, and we talked as a coaching staff that they recovered an onside kick. They blocked a punt that was they ran it back for 6 points. They had a pick 6 defensively. So you think about, and I look at all these games around the area, and that was essentially the same thing that happened in our game. The sudden change has been a game changer in every single big game going. I had the opportunity after scouting 2 weeks ago Waverly and Maine Endwell, on the Huddle fan app. And I got to watch with 1:30 to go in regulation. And, I high five, tip my hat to Matt Gallagher. I would have done the same thing. I would have gone for 2. I want to win it right now, and he's a guy that's a proven winner. And, I think what Jason Miller and his staff have done at Waverly, but it was an unbelievable game. It's one for the ages. And, they both, tip your hat to those guys and what they've done there. And like I said, it was fun to watch.
Absolutely. Let's switch gears a little bit. I go back quite a ways here. And when I played at Waverly, STC, Waverly, Notre Dame, Hornell, Sayre, and the small schools, and then Corning East, West, EFA, Southside, Horseheads. It's changed. Obviously, it's changed a lot. There's no more STC. Corning East and West have combined. EFA, Southside have combined. And I know you're from the same general era as I am. Your thoughts on is Corning Elmira or Corning Horseheads, does it have the same feel to these kids who probably don't remember Corning East and Corning West at this point, do they? So, your thoughts?
Probably not. We were so caught up. I think the adults get caught up in it more than the kids do. And to be honest with you, and like you said, I went to Notre Dame High School, and Notre Dame is struggling to field a team. Enrollment is down quite a bit. Coach Delizio passes away, and some of the guys that were legends there and as his assistants had tried to carry the program on, and then they just didn't have enough numbers. And but back in the day, we used to play the South Sides, the Horseheads, the EFAs, whatnot, and every game was the rivalry game, And then when I first started out as a coach back in 1993, well, actually 90, I started out at Horseheads and was a modified football coach and coached basketball there as well. Back in the era where we had 9th grade freshman basketball, yeah. But I started out there, and I learned so much from Joe Matika and Paul Burberry and George Gilbert, and and I have taken a little bit from each program. And now I was in Elmira for a little bit, and was actually named the head coach at Southside. So I have the winningest unopposed record in the history of Southside High School. I gave up no points, unscored upon, and undefeated. So the night they hired me as the coach, they merged programs. So I was actually in Elmira for about 9 years, and we had a really good run. I mean, I think we won 5 sectional titles, went to a Final Four, got beat 19-6 to the state champion Aquinas. So we had a good run there, and then I had the opportunity to go back. Bill Pierce gave me a chance to, as our athletic director, to come back to Corning, and George Vicalis as well was the head coach, and then he got into administration, and I missed the West-East rivalry. You missed the excitement with the kids, but again, it's all about the kids. I think that as adults, we get caught up in things that don't matter, and it's these guys that, but I do miss the rivalries, that you're playing people that are, and that kind of speaks to the fact that we're going and playing as a AA to teams from Section 3 and Section 5. I'm not a fan of that, because you could end up playing them 2 times in a season. And like I said, our city in Corning right now is not built like the city of Syracuse or the city of Rochester or the city of Albany, and we just don't have the draw that those people have.
You talked about it a little bit earlier, but talk about the importance of that support from the administration and the community up there in Corning.
Well, they've called it the City of Champions for quite some time, and we've been very fortunate. And I remember winning my first state title in softball in 1990 or 2019. Dating myself, 2019, and I was overcome with emotion from a standpoint that I have so many great friends that coach sports, and the ones I'm closest to are football, boys basketball, and softball, and I was overcome with emotion because I know how hard these guys work and the time that they invest, and some of them never get a chance to come to that pinnacle and win it all. And they don't know the elation and what it feels like, and the happiness that you see on your student athletes' faces. And the thing in Corning is that we were one of the few schools in New York State we're a scholar athlete school, and we were a scholar athlete school in all of our sports. And that's something that's really impressive, and a lot to say about our administration and our teachers and things like that. And I'm really lucky. And I've coached in some other districts, but from a standpoint of infrastructure and facilities and what our Board of Education has offered us opportunity-wise for our kids, it's second to none.
What's it going to take this year for you guys to put things together down the stretch and make a run?
Well, we're confident. I mean, last week was a good test for us, and again, the scrimmage or the practice against Waverly, again, I think they can win it all. I mean, Forks has been outstanding. This whole preseason, first couple 3-4 games, and I knew they were good, but I didn't know how good they were. And then Owego, I knew that the Taylor. Coach Taylor would put them on the map, and I think that they play a tough style of football, a lot like when he was in Tioga, and they're coming right at you, and they're going to punch you in the mouth, and that's what I've seen from those three programs that we've had a chance to line up against, and I think that I'm not so sure that CNS was like those three, but they had more finesse guys. And the Johnson kid you don't find kids like that. I mean, in 35 years of coaching, that kid is sometimes a once in a lifetime type kid. And, I think that for us, we have some kids still standing on the sideline with some injuries, and they haven't played it down yet this year. And when we had preseason and all off season during the summer, and we're working on, what we want to do from a game plan standpoint, and we miss those kids, and Jimmy Freeman is a 3-year varsity player, and he's been hobbling for the past 3 years with injuries, and he's been our leading tackler. He's had over 100 tackles in his first 2 years as a sophomore and junior, and he plays our middle linebacker, and he's played one game at Mike Vacker. We've been limited to being able to play him only on offense, and we just you need guys like that. You can't win games without your dudes, and so that's our end goal. By the time playoffs rolls around, that we have all the right guys in all the right positions, and they're as healthy as they can possibly be, and then I think we can compete with people.
All right, Coach, thanks for joining us here. I'm looking forward. I'm calling the game this Friday on 99.5 WOKN and 102.5 in Corning and the My Hometown Today app. So I'm looking forward to getting up there and seeing you guys live against Horseheads. Well,
I appreciate that. And, like I said, I think Horseheads is really good. And we're going to have to play probably our best game that we've played this year to have an opportunity to keep it close. But they've been playing with a lot of enthusiasm. I know they put a lot of time into it. They got a really good coaching staff. And I know they've been playing very physical. So, we've got to up our level of competition this weekend and our intensity level to be able to keep it close.
I'm just warning you, Pat. The offense they run, it's hard to keep track of football. So good luck with that.
Get my money, make my money, I guess. That's Corning head coach Mike Johnston. Coach, thanks for joining us here on Two Guys Talking Sports.
Thanks, Coach.
Thanks, guys. Good seeing you.
You too.
And we want to thank Corning head coach Mike Johnston for joining us here on Two Guys Talking Sports. Tim, let's turn to this week's football action on the New York State side of things. And we'll start with Coach Johnston's Hawks as they head over to Horseheads to play the Blue Raiders in probably the biggest game of the week.
Yeah, I think so. Horseheads going through quite a stretch here. They had Waverly and Owego, had a little breather last week with Elmira. This is going to be a tough game for them. Corning's offense, unless you see it, and you don't see it, that's the thing. Like Coach Johnston was talking about, he wants to see teams once a year because this offense is so unique. I think Horseheads is going to have to score some points to win this game.
Yeah, Horseheads 2 straight losses there at Waverly, then against Owego. They get that win 42-6 last week over Elmira. So, yeah, big game for Horseheads. I know we talked to Coach Hillman earlier this year. He was happy to have this one at home, obviously. It's always nice to play a great team in your own house there. But, yeah, it's going to be tough.
But even if they lose, it's a non-divisional game. It has no impact on the postseason. And, you hope you learn from – that's like Coach Aiello always says at Tioga. If we lose, we want to learn from those losses.
Then the big one for them will be next week at Vestal, right? Will be the big one for Horseheads. So probably the main thing for Horseheads, stay healthy, hopefully you get a win if you're Coach Hillman in Horseheads. But, yeah, just stay healthy as you head down the stretch. You have Vestal, then Binghamton, and then UE. So,
and I think, Vestal is the main hurdle for them to win a section title.
Yeah, so I'm looking forward. We'll be there live this Friday night, corning at Horseheads on WOKN and the My Hometown Today app. Let's turn to Owego. They hit the road to the Syracuse area, I believe, in West Hill.
Yeah, West Hill, I don't know a lot about them. I do know that they have a very dangerous dual-threat quarterback. I think he's thrown for, more than 1,000 yards so far and run for about 700. So, if they can contain him, as they say, and not let him do too much damage. I think, they're a physical team. Again, like I said, I don't know much about West Hill, but Owego, I think, can wear down teams, and, we'll see.
Just looking at the max preps for West Hill, I mean, they're 2-3 on the year, but they're playing a bigger schedule. Obviously, they lost to Forks 42-28. They beat up Central Valley Academy 40-13. They won against Verona Sherrill 36-26, then lost to Indian River 60-45, and Chittenango 54-42. So they're giving up points, and Owego has shown they've started slow a couple of games, but they've shown they can score points.
Yeah, and they're gonna come at you and run at you, and but they can throw the football a little bit too. So could be an interesting game.
Should be a fun one. We'll have it on WEBO with Darren Dodge heading up to Syracuse for us. Elmira will host Union Endicott. Elmira obviously looking to get a win here.
And UE's down, so that should be a competitive game.
And then Waverly at Dryden. I think Waverly is going to be able to work on a lot of stuff.
They've hung 70 on Dryden at least 3 times in the last 10 to 12 years, so I wouldn't be surprised if they did it again.
I know Coach Miller talked last week about trying to work on that run game. I'm sure they'll have some opportunities to do that. Tioga looking to bounce back after 2 losses so far. They head to rival Newark Valley, who is, like you talked about, is struggling a little bit.
Yeah, a little bit. They're down, some injuries and since the season started. Tioga, again, it's just tightening some things up on defense is all they need to do right now.
And then Spencer and Canders at Delhi, so that will be a tough one.
Delhi's pretty good.
Yeah.
That definitely opened my eyes. Phil Newman's a great coach up there. Did a lot of good things last week against Tioga. I think you'll see more of the same, as far as very, very good mix run and throw the ball.
And then finally, 8-man action, Edison at Moravia.
Edison's won 2 in a row.
Yeah.
They went a couple years there without a win period. Now they've won 2 in a row. They look pretty good. Moravia is always pretty solid. I think they last year they were in the mix for section title, so it'd be a big test for them.
I think they made a run last year, Moravia in the state tournament there in 8-man. So yeah, it should be some good games. Obviously the big one, I think, Corning Horseheads, and like I said, we'll have that on WOKN and the My Hometown Today app. We want to thank our sponsor, Jay Lister LLC and Lenders Assistance. Give Jim Lister a call, 607-857-2036. You can email him at jim.lister@yahoo.com. Let his 30 years in the automobile industry work for you. That's going to do it for episode 14. Coming up next episode 15, we'll have Tawanda, standout running back on the football team, standout wrestler Riley Vanderpool joining us. So we're looking forward to talking to Riley.
Absolutely.
That's going to do it for us. We'll talk to you next time here on Two Guys Talking Sports.